It's been 3 years since Mr. Clark went into a coma, and there's still no sign of recovery. Even the Clark family has been advising CEO Lowell to give up, but she remains devoted. CEO Lowell must be desperately in love with him. And they were childhood sweethearts, too. Mr. Clark is so lucky to have had her blatant favoritism since they were young. I heard CEO Lowell has been planning their wedding all this time, hoping to make their union official. Imagine how moved Mr. Clark will be when he wakes up. Outside the hospital room, the nurse's chatter faded into the distance. On the bed, Sincere Clark's tears soaked his pillowcase. System, I don't want to wake up. Just let me go back to the mission worlds. Host, have you gone mad with joy? You went through hell and back, completing all those missions, just so you could finally be with Victoria Lowell in the next instant. The system's typically mechanical voice, tinged with a rare hint of surprise, was overwhelmed by an even greater shock. It stared, dumbfounded, at the naked man and woman on the hospital room sofa. Host, isn't that your fiancée? It's her. Sincere Clark recognized her voice, her scent. 6 years ago, on the eve of their wedding, Victoria Lowell was in a car crash that left her in a deep coma. He had cared for her tirelessly, never leaving her side for 3 whole years. As her condition worsened and she grew weaker, he prayed day and night for the heavens to spare her. Just as she was on the brink of death, the system appeared. It told him he could save her by earning points, but he couldn't wait. To save Victoria, he didn't hesitate to borrow an astronomical number of points from the system. After Victoria woke up, he took her place, falling into a vegetative state. For the past 3 years, to pay back the massive debt and return to her side, he had recklessly taken on one SS mission after another. He endured inhuman torture, holding on only by the thought of her. But on the very day he returned, filled with joy and anticipation, the fiancée he had yearned for was locked in a passionate embrace with another man, right in front of his hospital bed. Victoria, lost in the throes of physical pleasure, seemed to sense something. With a final shiver, her dazed eyes regained their usual cool indifference. Without a shred of lingering affection, she pushed the man off her and rose to pick up their clothes, which were scattered across the floor. Ethan Shaw sat on the sofa, completely bare, a look of grievance in his eyes. Victoria, do we have to hide like this forever? Victoria, now fully dressed, slowly smoothed the wrinkles on her skirt as if she weren't the same woman who had been wrapped around him like a serpent moments before. If you want to be with me, you have to be my secret lover. If you're not happy with that, you can end this any time. The title of my husband belongs to Sincere and Sincere alone. Ethan's eyes welled with tears as he said pitifully, I would never dare to dream of being your husband. I'm content just to have a small corner in your heart. Victoria glanced at his firm muscles, her eyes darkening for a moment. Then her cold tone softened with a touch of pity. You've been with me for 3 years. As long as you know your place, I won't treat you unfairly. After Sincere and I have an heir for the Lowell family, I can have a child with you. Host, she got a lover the moment you were gone, and she's cheating on you with your own brother. Victoria Lowell is not my fiancée, and Ethan Shaw is not my brother. Sincere communicated in his mind, his consciousness racked with agony. System, take me away. I never want to see them again. The system should have been thrilled at the prospect of Sincere working for the Master God to earn points for the rest of his life. But at this moment it couldn't bear it. Host, you don't have to leave this world. You could just get away from them, find a place where no one knows you, and start a new life. Victoria once loved me enough to die for me, but she still fell for Ethan Shaw. It won't be long before she despises me just like my parents and sister do. No one in this world wants me. Let me go. With Sincere having lost the will to live, the heart monitor shrieked with an ear-piercing alarm. Beep. Sincere Victoria scrambled to the bedside, her heart sinking at the sight of her lover's lifeless face. She frantically pressed the call button, screaming toward the door. Help someone. Help Victoria, and the Clark family will never let me go. Only death can set me free. Sincere's consciousness began to fade into nothingness. The system spoke urgently. Host, you can retract the wish that healed Victoria Lowell. The points you get back will be more than enough to get you a new body. A moment of clarity returned to Sincere. Host, with a new identity, Victoria and the Clark family will have nothing to do with you. You will have a family that truly loves you. Don't be afraid, Host. The light in the emergency room stayed on for a long, long time. Clutching several critical condition notices, Victoria sat slumped on the cold hallway floor all night, completely devastated. It was as if she had been plunged into a silent, terrifying abyss, the only sounds being the frantic footsteps of the medical staff and the pounding of her own heart. Her nerves were stretched to their absolute limit. When she finally heard that Sincere had not only survived but had also miraculously woken up, Victoria burst into tears of joy. She wept all the way back to the room following his gurney. She hugged her rediscovered treasure tightly, burying her head in his shoulder, her warm breath and tears falling onto his skin. Sincere, I thought I was going to lose you. Do you have any idea you've been asleep for 3 years? I searched for doctors all over the world, but no one could figure out why. They thought maybe you were just too tired. Sincere, I'm so sorry, this is all my fault. Don't ever leave me again, Sincere. Victoria held him for a while, then let go to look at him, only to pull him into another tight embrace, repeating the cycle as if terrified he would disappear. She poured out her love for him. For these 3 years, there wasn't a moment I wasn't terrified of losing you. I would die without you. In those 3,000 small worlds, Sincere had imagined their reunion countless times. In every scenario, she would hold him just like this. He had been filled with joy, thinking happiness was finally within his grasp. He had never imagined he would be met with such a bloody betrayal. The embrace that he had once longed for now felt like the cold, slick coils of a python, suffocating him with disgust. She even smelled of Ethan's favorite cologne, a scent that brought back the filthy words they had exchanged in their passion last night. Filthy. So utterly filthy. Sincere couldn't stop himself from violently pushing her away, turning to the side and retching. Ugh, Victoria panicked, rushing to bring him water in a basin, carefully wiping his mouth. She kept glancing at him, wanting to say something but hesitating each time. Finally, she couldn't hold back any longer and tentatively asked, "Did you hear anything last night?" Sincere looked up and caught the guilt and panic in her eyes. So she was afraid? Then why did she choose to seek her thrills right next to his hospital bed? Was she so sure he would never wake up? Or so convinced he would never leave her? Host, I found the young master of the Morgan group has an incomplete soul and is scheduled to be reincarnated in half a month. I've already made arrangements with the powers that be. After Sincere Morgan passes, you can take over his body. The Morgans are much more powerful than the Clarks. Half a month? In just half a month he would have a new identity. Sincere stared at the woman before him, who was now the picture of health. She bore no resemblance to the gaunt, lifeless person she had been 3 years ago. System, what will happen to her after I retract my wish? She'll return to being a comatose patient. Sincere's expression faltered for a second. The system asked curiously, "Host, are you regretting it?" I'm just sighing at the irony. He had bound himself to the system and traveled through worlds just to heal her, to spend the rest of his life with her. Now he was personally taking back the points he had borrowed for her sake, and she would return to being a comatose patient, on the verge of dying silently at any moment, just as she had been 3 years ago. How did two people who were so in love end up like this? A warmth rose in his eyes, and Sincere quickly lowered his head, fighting back tears. The system comforted him. Host, this was Victoria Lowell's original fate. Speaking of which, that villain from the first world who awakened and chased you from one world to the next. I think she's far more devoted than Victoria Lowell. I told you to consider her back then, but you were completely unmoved. What a shame. When Sincere didn't reply, Victoria's heart sank. She cursed herself for giving in to temptation and fooling around in the hospital room last night. Of all the nights, it had to be the one right before he woke up. No, it couldn't be. He couldn't have heard. Sincere, no matter what, you are the only man I will ever recognize as my husband. Right now, Victoria just wanted to get the wedding over with to dispel her unsettling feeling of dread. She cast aside all thoughts of traditional courtship and betrothal rituals, her expression firm and solemn. I'm going back to the Lowell estate to prepare. The day you're discharged, I'll come to discuss the wedding arrangements. Our wedding has already been delayed for 6 whole years. I can't wait any longer, Sincere. Without waiting for a response, she stood up and hurried out of the room. Not long after the door closed, Sebastian and Amelia Clark arrived, looking tired from their journey. Confirming that Sincere was awake, Sebastian breathed a sigh of relief. Good that you're awake. Very good. Sincere's heart softened slightly, recalling the affection his father had shown him before he turned 5. He was their first child, born into love and anticipation. But then he heard Sebastian continue in a low mumble. Ethan is 28 now. We can't keep letting him wait. Ethan Shaw. Of course it was about him again. Sincere smiled bitterly. What else did they want him to do for Ethan Shaw? He had already given up his parents and sister, served as a personal blood bank for 20 years. Wasn't that enough? He was dying. Sincere didn't want to ask his parents if they even remembered who their biological son was. Whenever he protested, all he got in return was ungrateful and a spoiled brat. All because in the car accident when he was 5, the driver, Ethan's father, had died from his injuries. They all said Mr. Shaw died saving him, that Ethan was pitiful, that he owed Ethan a life. But what crime had he committed? If he could, he would have rather died 23 years ago. Amelia, seeing her son with his head down and not saying a word, chided him with dissatisfaction. You don't even know how to greet your own parents. And after we rushed here to see you first thing, how improper lying in bed for a few years hasn't changed your rebellious nature one bit. He had long stopped hoping for any maternal love, but his heart still ached. Sincere suppressed the turmoil of his emotions. Just say it. What do you need me to do? Without any consideration for whether her newly awakened son could handle it, Amelia got straight to the point. Sincere, I'm not afraid to tell you. Ethan and Victoria are together. You've been lying in that bed half dead for years, making Victoria afraid to go public with it. Now that you're awake, you should let them be happy. Every word was like a sledgehammer, shattering Sincere's heart. So they all knew about Ethan and Victoria. Sincere's voice was hoarse and raspy, each word a cry of blood. I'm the one who was betrayed and hurt, and now you're blaming me for holding them back? You were in a coma for 3 years. Did you expect her to wait for you for 3 years? Amelia looked at him with disapproval, her eyes filled with disappointment. Ethan isn't like you. He's not a biological Clark. His prospects are limited. If he misses out on Victoria, what's he supposed to do? Ethan has already wasted too much of his youth on Victoria. Sincere, you can't be so selfish. In the end, Amelia threw out one last line. This is what you owe Ethan. Sincere looked up at his so-called parents. If I die, I won't owe him anything, right? Fine. So now you're threatening us with death. Sebastian was furious, unleashing a torrent of belittling accusations. It's been 3 years. Do you really think Victoria still loves you? Marrying you would be out of obligation. How long are you going to hold this over her head? You've been nothing but trouble since you were a child. Why can't you learn to be as filial and sensible as Ethan? You rebellious son's sorrow washed over Sincere. How do you want me to let them be happy? A smile finally appeared on Amelia's face. Your father and I have already picked out a marriage partner for you. It's the eldest daughter of the Windsor family from Viridia. She's willing to marry you. In a few days, you'll tell Victoria that you were the one who had a change of heart. That way, Victoria won't have any psychological burden and will be able to see how good Ethan is. The Windsors are just as powerful as the Lowells. After you marry Miss Windsor, you'll have immense wealth and glory. Your father and I would never harm you. Host, don't listen to her. The system quickly pulled up information. The Windsor family is indeed incredibly powerful, but Miss Windsor is mentally unstable. She's crippled her last 2 fiancés. The Clarks are desperate to get in on the Windsor's multi-billion-dollar project in the city center, and are rushing into this business marriage. The Clarks have always been worried about public opinion, that people would say they were raising Ethan just to use him in a marriage alliance, repaying kindness with cruelty. You waking up at this moment was perfect for them, so they want you to marry Miss Windsor. They just met with Mr. Windsor before coming here and finalized the marriage. Sincere had cared for Victoria for 3 years and then been comatose for another 3. He had no way of knowing the Windsors' secrets. With the Clark family's influence, if they had bothered to investigate, he didn't believe for a second that his parents were unaware. If it weren't for the system, perhaps he would have canceled the engagement due to Victoria's infidelity, then, with a dead heart, obeyed his parents' command and married Miss Windsor. These were his wonderful mother and father. What are you hesitating for? In all of Viridia, besides the Sterlings and the Morgans, who can compare to the Windsors? Sebastian's face was stern. And Miss Windsor's aunt is the mother of the head of the Sterling family. Although the relationship between the two families has cooled since her tragic death and the Sterling heir's coma, the Sterling heir also woke up yesterday. You think the head of the Sterling family wouldn't help out her own maternal uncle? Amelia was overjoyed. Oh my, you've managed to latch on to both the Windsor and Sterling families, and you say I'm biased. I'm giving the best to you. You ungrateful brat. Sincere looked into his mother's eager eyes, which held not a single shred of hesitation or concern. Were they really in such a hurry to push him into a pit of fire? In truth, if Linda Windsor was a madwoman, wasn't Victoria one too? Only he knew what kind of obsessive, terrifying demon lurked deep within Victoria's heart. Unless he died, there was no escaping these two absurd marriage contracts. System, I agree. I'll retract the wish for Victoria's recovery and take over the new body in half a month. The Morgans are more powerful than the Windsors, Lowells, and Clarks combined. I will never be at their mercy again. Understood, host. Sincere tacitly agreed to his parents' proposal. He didn't want to spend his last 15 days enduring their endless scolding. Once this body was dead, the engagement to Victoria would naturally be void. On the day he was discharged, Sincere saw his sister, Melody Clark, for the first time in a long while. Facing her brother, who had just recovered from a long illness, her eyes seemed to hold only weariness. The flicker of joy in Sincere's heart died out. Was she afraid his return would make Ethan overthink things? On the way home, Melody, her pretty face tense, confirmed his fears with her cold, pointed words. Sincere, Ethan lost his father when he was young, and has always lived under someone else's roof. He might look strong, but he's very fragile inside. He should have had a happy family. Uncle Shaw, watching from heaven, wouldn't want to see his son suffer. Sincere lowered his gaze. Suffer? Ethan, who had been frail since childhood, received all the attention and affection of the Clark family. Sincere's original bedroom, study, and art studio were all given to Ethan. From elementary school to university, teachers and classmates only saw Sincere, who was forced to take care of Ethan in every aspect. As a page boy, a study companion. Sincere could have gotten into an Ivy League school. At the very least, he could have attended the A-list university near Ethan's school. But to be a convenient blood bank, he could only follow Ethan to a second-tier state college. Was that suffering? Sincere remembered the first time he was dragged to give Ethan a blood transfusion. He had cried from the pain, and his sister had cried with him, giving him all the candy she had hidden away. Don't cry, big bro. Mel is here. That candy should have been sweet, but the memory was now exceptionally bitter. Sincere fought to hold back his tears, but they stubbornly fell, one by one. He could only lean back against the seat and turn his head to look out the car window. My dear sister. Melody's cold words reached his ears. Don't you dare bully Ethan. When they arrived at the Clark residence, Ethan happened to be coming out of the kitchen, a gentle, harmless smile on his face. Big bro, to celebrate you coming home, I made a few dishes. Come on, big bro, have a taste. Sincere looked at the dining table: fish, shrimp, crab, scallops. It was all seafood. Sebastian and Amelia looked on with pride and approval, seeing nothing wrong with the spread. "You're not eating, big bro?" Tears fell from Ethan's eyes like broken pearls. "I knew it. Big bro still won't accept me. Did I do something wrong?" Sincere Clark Sebastian slammed his chopsticks on the table. "No matter how much you resent Ethan, he is a son of the Clark family. Your younger brother I told you to eat. So eat." Amelia shook her head in disappointment. "Sincere, you're being too willful." Melody's brow furrowed even deeper. "Ethan worked hard on this all day. Is it so difficult for you to take even a symbolic bite?" Yes, was it that difficult? He had been rushed to the hospital for a seafood allergy when he was 3. They didn't remember. "I'm not eating." Sincere Clark Sebastian shot up from his seat. Before the angry words could escape his lips, Sincere spoke calmly. "I'm allergic to seafood. I can't eat any of this." Sebastian's expression froze, as if he had finally recalled the dangerous incident from so many years ago. "I'm sorry, big bro, I didn't know." Ethan's tears streamed down his face, crying as if he had been terribly wronged. "Please don't hate me, big bro." The guilt on Sebastian's face vanished, replaced by a cold reprimand. "Ethan didn't do it on purpose. Why did you have to say it out loud and embarrass him?" A familiar sense of powerlessness washed over him, and Sincere, his leg muscles atrophied, swayed on his feet. "Forget it. I'm tired." He forced himself to walk towards his room. He pushed open the door to find not his room, but a guest room that had been renovated into a piano studio. "Sincere, you were in the hospital all these years, and this room was just sitting empty. Ethan wanted to learn the piano, so we let him use it." Amelia had followed him, her expression a little awkward. "You don't mind, do you?" Sincere asked softly. "I'm awake now. Shouldn't I have it back? It's not like we don't have other rooms in the house." Amelia became angry out of embarrassment. "Look at Ethan. When has he ever fought with you over anything?" Sincere sighed. "He doesn't have to fight. He gets everything anyway." Amelia's face flushed with shame. Melody, who had come up behind them, said in a heavy tone, "Sincere Clark, what are you trying to stir up now? Are you trying to make things difficult for us? Or are you deliberately targeting Ethan?" Sincere stared at Melody for a long time. In a daze, he could no longer see the shadow of the little sister who used to follow him around like a little tail. He had only been in a coma for 3 years, and the small place he held in his sister's heart had been completely taken over by Ethan. Why was it that his debt to Ethan could never be repaid? Sensing the sorrow in her brother's eyes, Melody softened her tone. "Big bro, you're too prejudiced against Ethan. He means you no harm. I hope you two can get along. Also, you woke up so suddenly. We'll prepare another room for you later. Stop making a scene, I understand." Sincere didn't argue. What was the point of fighting? They had never intended for him to win. In the end, Sincere moved into a small room at the end of the top-floor hallway. His personal belongings, cleared out from his original room, were piled messily in a corner. The snow globe had been broken for who knows how long, the liquid inside had dried up, and the small castle model had rolled out and been crushed underfoot. It was a gift from his sister. Sincere remembered his then 3-year-old sister saying she would build a grand castle one day for the two of them to live in together. Sincere picked up the broken snow globe and flicked the switch. No music played. He should have realized it long ago. This home hadn't belonged to him for 23 years. In the corner were many other carefully treasured items, all symbols of the familial love and romance he so desperately craved. They had all moved on. He was the only one still stuck in the past. It was time to let go. Sincere found a burlap sack and began to pack the items one by one, dragging them out to the yard. He then brought over a metal barrel, placed some of the more flammable things inside, and lit a fire. Smelling the smoke, Sebastian rushed out, yelling and stamping his feet. "Just because we changed your room, you set a fire. Are you trying to disgrace the Clark family?" Amelia was incredulous. "Sincere, how could you become like this?" Sincere ignored them, mechanically adding things to the barrel. Sincere Clark, do you have to turn this house upside down? Melody stepped forward and grabbed her brother's hand. Just then, Victoria Lowell arrived with a car full of gifts to discuss the marriage. As soon as Victoria got out of the car, she saw the blazing barrel, her gaze finally landing on the stuffed toy in Sincere's hand. She was shocked. Sincere, I gave that to you. You used to sleep with it every night. You're going to burn it? Sincere stared blankly at the filthy rabbit doll. It was unclear if he was talking about the toy or her. It's dirty. The stuffed toy had been carelessly tossed aside for too long. Its once white fur was covered in large stains, and its ears even had marks from being gnawed by rats. Victoria took the rabbit doll, frowning. How did it get like this? Sincere threw the school uniforms, photos, and love letters he had carefully preserved into the barrel all at once. The ferocious flames consumed everything from the past. He asked the same question as Victoria. Yeah, how did it get like this? Victoria didn't see the photos and letters, only catching a glimpse of a school uniform corner. She assumed Sincere was just burning old things. She casually tossed the stuffed rabbit in with disgust. If it's burned, it's burned. I'll buy you a new one. Before the toy was even consumed by the flames, Victoria eagerly pulled Sincere over to look at the dowry list. Mansions, luxury cars, jewelry, antiques, and paintings. She had amassed a priceless dowry for herself over the past 3 years. Victoria shoved the list into his hands, her voice bright. Sincere, all of this dowry will be in your care. Once we're married, everything the Lowell Corporation owns will be yours. If I didn't have to pick an auspicious date, I'd want to have the wedding today. Victoria's eyes sparkled, and for a moment, Sincere saw the 18-year-old girl who had stammered her confession of love to him, her cheeks flushed red. If he hadn't heard her with Ethan, he would have thought she was madly in love with him. Victoria, how could you cheat on me? We were so close to having our happy ending. Victoria's chest heaved, her eyes burning with intensity. Sincere, let's set our wedding for the 28th of this month, okay? Sincere nodded. Okay. On the 28th, their wedding day would be his death day. Victoria Lowell, let's see how it feels to go from hope to despair. The Clark family had witnessed the entire exchange. The Lowells' sudden proposal had caught them off guard, and they couldn't openly object. After Victoria left, Amelia's face turned cold. How could you agree to a wedding? If the Windsors find out, how are you going to marry Miss Windsor? And what about Ethan? Why didn't you think about him? I know you used to like Victoria a lot, but you have to accept reality. She and Ethan are the ones who are a couple. Did they really want Ethan to marry Victoria that badly? Sincere was actually looking forward to it. He would die while Victoria still loved him. When that time came, would Ethan get his wish? And how would the Clark family explain themselves to the Windsors? Don't worry, this engagement will be canceled. A sad smile touched Sincere's lips. He couldn't help but wonder if they would be sad after he died. How pathetic was that, to have to use death to win their pity. Fortunately for him, death was a new beginning. He would soon be completely free of them, no longer needing to hope for their so-called love. The Windsors are a great match. So many young men would kill for the opportunity, and you brat, are reluctant. Aren't your father and I doing this for your own good? Amelia snatched the dowry list from his hand and shoved it into Ethan's. Ethan, this is your fiancée's dowry. You keep it safe. But Victoria gave this to Big Bro. Ethan looked at the dazzling array of gifts on the table, already mad with jealousy. When he glanced at the long list of assets on the dowry list, his eyes turned red. He had been with Victoria for 3 years. How could he still not compare to Sincere Clark? And the Windsors, they were a top-tier family. Why did Sincere, that sickly weakling, get a better marriage arrangement than him? Ethan forced down the surging jealousy in his heart and fearfully pushed the list away. Mom, I wouldn't dare compete with Big Bro. This should go to him. It's my fault. I just hope Big Bro doesn't hate me. Silly child. You're the one who's been wronged. Amelia gently stroked her adopted son's head, her heart filled with emotion. If only Sincere were half as sensible as you. That night, as Sincere went downstairs for a glass of water, he passed the second floor and saw Ethan standing on the small balcony. Sincere acted as if he didn't see him, but Ethan approached, his handsome face filled with undisguised mockery. "What's wrong, big bro? Can't sleep because the dowry list ended up in my hands? Dad, Mom, Melody, and even Victoria. They were supposed to be your nearest and dearest. Look at you now. Who even cares about you? You're such a failure, big bro." Sincere looked at his bloodshot eyes. "You seem to be having trouble sleeping too. Is it because the person Victoria wants to marry isn't you?" Sincere Clark, his weak spot struck. Ethan's face twisted into a terrifying grimace. Sincere weakly held onto the handrail, but his words were firm and clear. "Climbing into your future sister-in-law's bed while your adoptive brother lies sick and unconscious. You're shameless, despicable, and have no regard for decency. You're the one who should feel ashamed. What's there to be proud of?" Ethan gritted his teeth. "So what if you're the real Clark's son? They all side with me. They want you to break off the engagement with Victoria." A thought occurred to him, and Ethan smiled maliciously, a hint of triumph in his voice. "The night before you woke up, Victoria begged me for it 3 whole times, right there by your bed. My body drives her wild." Victoria's betrayal no longer stirred any anger or sadness in him. Sincere's eyes were as calm as a stagnant pond. "Ethan Shaw, you are pathetic." Failing to provoke Sincere, Ethan's composure shattered. "Sincere Clark, what right do you have to still look so high and mighty? Don't forget, you owe me a life. You should have never woken up a demonic malice fueled an impulse that had been suppressed for years." It burst forth, compelling Ethan to shove the man in front of him. Go to hell the moment he heard that last sentence. Sincere sensed something was wrong. As his body lost its balance, he grabbed Ethan, and the two of them tumbled down the long, winding staircase together. Blood gushed from Ethan's forehead and trickled from Sincere's mouth. His vision stained red. Sincere saw Ethan's face contorted in pain, so he could feel pain too. Melody was the first to hear the noise and come downstairs. Seeing the two figures lying in a pool of blood, she almost instinctively ran to Ethan. Ethan, who had been pampered for years, had already passed out from the pain. Glancing briefly at her still conscious brother, Melody ordered the bodyguards to get Ethan into the car first. Sincere, Ethan hit his head. "It's critical. I have to get him to the hospital." With that, she turned and strode out the door without a backward glance. "Host, you have multiple fractures and internal injuries. Even if you weren't changing identities, you wouldn't have lived much longer." Sincere managed a weak smile before passing out. "No wonder it hurts so much," he whispered. In the end, it was the butler who took Sincere to the hospital. Less than a day after being discharged, Sincere was back in the operating room. When he woke up, Victoria was sitting by his bed, her eyes red as she clutched his hand. "Sincere, thank goodness you're awake. I was so afraid you wouldn't wake up again." Her voice was choked with tears. "Don't leave me, Sincere." The anesthesia had worn off, and every slight movement sent waves of dense pain through Sincere's broken body. Still, he insisted on pulling his hand away. "Just a little longer. It's almost over." Bang! Sebastian kicked the door open, roaring with anger. "Sincere Clark, you pushed your own brother down the stairs. How could I have a son with a heart as black as a viper's behind him?" Amelia wiped away tears, her heart aching. "Sincere, you've disappointed me so much." Sincere looked at his emotional parents with indifference, his tone terrifyingly calm. "Ethan pushed me first." Still trying to argue, Sebastian was furious. "Why would Ethan push you for no reason? You're the one who's always been petty and targeted him since you were kids." Sincere knew it would end up like this. He reached for the phone on the bedside table. "Then let's call the police. The police can reconstruct the scene and find out the truth." Sebastian was livid. He snatched the phone and smashed it to pieces. "A family feud, you want the whole world to come and laugh at the Clarks?" Sincere stared directly at his so-called father. "I just want to clear my name." Sebastian met his son's gaze, a flicker of confusion in his dark expression. Victoria, her face grim, intervened. "Uncle, let's at least hear what Sincere has to say." Just as Sebastian was about to impatiently ask about that night, the slightly ajar door was thrown open again, slamming against the wall with a loud bang. Melody rushed in with 2 doctors. Without a word, she grabbed Sincere's arm and turned to the doctors urgently. "Quick, draw his blood. You want me to give blood to Ethan Shaw?" Sincere looked up at his sister's strangely unfamiliar face. "Melody, aren't you going to ask about my condition?" Melody's eyes were full of impatience and exhaustion. "Sincere Clark, I won't press charges for you pushing Ethan down the stairs. But Ethan will die without your blood. Save him first." Hearing that her old lover's life was in danger, Victoria felt a pang of pity. The word "Sincere needs to rest" died on her lips. She looked at Sincere, her brow furrowed with anxiety. "Sincere, that's your brother." "Victoria Lowell, you want me to give blood to Ethan Shaw too?" It was the first time Victoria had seen such a look in Sincere's eyes, a look that seemed to hold endless despair and desolation. An inexplicable unease bloomed in her heart. But then she remembered the past 3 years of passion with Ethan, and a hint of desire colored her dark eyes. To her, Sincere was a god to be worshipped from afar, while Ethan was a bed partner who could satisfy her every whim. A bed partner was no match for a god, of course, but she didn't want to lose either of them. This wasn't an either-or choice. It was just a little blood. It would be fine. No matter what, you're brothers. Victoria instinctively avoided Sincere's gaze. "The doctors are here. Nothing will happen to you. I'll help you recover. I'll have the butler make you some nourishing soup right away." With that, Victoria picked up her phone and walked out of the room. Sincere felt as if he had been completely hollowed out. He lay on the bed, staring blankly at her retreating back. He remembered when he was 6, Ethan had killed his cat. When he complained to his parents, all he got was a scolding. Unwilling to accept it, he cried and threw a tantrum. But instead of his mother's warm embrace and comfort, he received a merciless slap. He ran away from home with his school bag, and it was Victoria who found him. She took his hand and walked him home, telling him she would grow up quickly and give him a warm home with lots of cats. She broke her promise. After Victoria left, Amelia no longer held back. "You're fine now, aren't you? What's wrong with giving some blood to Ethan?" He hurt his head and his health was never good to begin with. "I think you're just trying to stall and let Ethan die," Melody frowned. "He's just asking for a little of your blood." Without waiting for Sincere to react, she ordered the doctor in a low voice. "Draw it, now. It's probably not appropriate to draw blood from an injured patient," the doctor said, wiping his sweat. "The hospital has already requested a blood supply from the city hospital. It'll be here in half an hour." "No. What if something happens to Ethan in the meantime?" Amelia was frantic. Seeing that she couldn't reason with them, she strode forward, roughly grabbed Sincere's arm, and plunged the needle into his vein. The cold sensation made Sincere's very soul tremble. His life force drained away with his blood. Waves of dizziness sent Sincere back to his happiest childhood moments. Sensing a familiar presence, he wanted to see his mother's face one more time, but his vision was too blurry. He could only manage a faint whisper, "Mom, Mom, it hurts so much. Mom." Those kitten-like cries of Mom made Amelia's heart clench, but she quickly remembered her adopted son in the other room, hovering between life and death. "Sincere, stop being so willful." Amelia hardened her heart and turned away from her son, complaining, "If it weren't for you, Ethan wouldn't be in this mess. You need to learn your lesson." "We've already drawn 200 cc's, the doctor reminded them urgently. Sebastian urged, "Keep drawing." Amelia hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement. "It's better to draw more just in case." Melody's mind was filled with the image of Ethan with a bloody gash on his head. She had no time for her brother, constantly looking out of the room and murmuring, "Ethan, you have to be okay. Warning host's current condition is not stable enough to last until the new identity's host passes away." The system's alarm blared. In what seemed like a final burst of clarity, Sincere heard their words clearly. In his peripheral vision, he saw the woman he had once considered his salvation hang up the phone and return to the room. He slowly closed his eyes. "System, take whatever points you need. Get me out of here." The system was silent for a long moment. It didn't normally handle soul hosting, but in the end, it made an exception for its host. Soul detachment initiated. 400 cc's, we can't draw anymore. Seeing Sincere pass out, the terrified doctor quickly stopped them. Even a healthy person couldn't handle losing this much at once. "This is a matter of life and death. What are you dawdling for?" He gave 600 cc's before and was perfectly fine, Sebastian. Sebastian was about to continue his tirade when Amelia stopped him. She glanced at her son on the bed, his eyes tightly shut, and her heart skipped a beat for no reason. "Forget it. Let's take this blood and save Ethan first." Following his wife's gaze, Sebastian noticed Sincere's deathly pale face. He snorted coldly. Rebellious son. He brought this on himself just then. Melody stood up. "We've wasted too much time. Let's go. If the blood's not enough, we can come back for more." The doctor was about to check on Sincere, but Melody dragged him away. Victoria brushed past them. She remembered Sincere's dim, lifeless eyes, and a growing sense of panic overwhelmed her. She was about to go and comfort her love. Sebastian, who had always wanted to set Victoria up with Ethan, called out to her. "Victoria, come with us." Victoria looked towards the bed. Sincere's head was turned quietly to the side. The sunlight filtering through his matted hair revealed skin so translucent it seemed almost white, so weak, so pale, as if he would disappear in the next second. Victoria's heart tightened, and she stepped forward. Amelia, about to leave the room, turned back when she saw Victoria hadn't followed. She advised, "Let Sincere rest." Thinking of her dying lover in the other room and Ethan's 3 years of devoted, thankless companionship, Victoria felt a pang of guilt and changed her course. Out of a strange sense of shame, she couldn't even bring herself to face Sincere. "Sincere, I'm going to check on your brother." In an instant, the room fell silent. They didn't even notice I died. Sincere's soul floated in the air, looking down at his lonely corpse with a sense of loss. "Host, the fact that they don't love you can't hurt you. What truly hurts you is your own unrealistic expectations and clinging to illusions." The system guided Sincere's soul to the operating room door. The Clark family and Victoria all had faces etched with genuine anxiety and worry. No one was thinking about him, the one who was severely injured and had just lost several hundred milliliters of blood. "Host, give up hope." Sincere looked away, staring straight at the door. Inside, he saw Ethan, who was supposed to be on the brink of death, looking ruddy-cheeked and triumphant. Sincere laughed at himself. If the Clarks and Victoria had paid even the slightest bit of attention, they would have seen through Ethan's clumsy lies. But alas, concern clouds judgment. "Goodbye, Dad, Mom, Melody. Goodbye, Victoria Lowell." Sincere took one last look at his former parents, sister, and lover. In the future, he would be his own nearest and dearest, loving himself 1,000 times over. Farewell forever. The system, on the other hand, was furious at the scene in the operating room. On the day you woke up, Melody installed security cameras in all the hallways and stairwells of the Clark house. The system can hack into all major social media platforms and expose the footage. Melody had probably installed the cameras because she was afraid he would bully Ethan. In a twist of fate, they had recorded Ethan's crime. Sincere just found it absurd. A wave of drowsiness washed over him. There was still some time before he could take over the new body, but his remaining points weren't enough to keep his soul conscious. He gradually fell into a dormant state. Before he fell asleep, Sincere looked sadly at the system that had been with him for 3,000 worlds. "Thank you, system." In the end, the system had gotten him justice. He wasn't so pathetic after all. The moment Sincere completely fell dormant, Victoria seemed to sense something, as if a vital part of her life had been forcibly ripped away. She looked around frantically at the empty air. "Don't go," Melody, with a complicated expression, comforted her. "Ethan will be fine." Victoria opened her mouth but couldn't explain why. Not long after, the phones of Victoria and the Clark family began to ring off the hook. They learned that the Clark family's security footage had been leaked and was now trending everywhere. Confused, Victoria opened the video her mother had sent her. "What's wrong, big bro? Can't sleep because the dowry list ended up in my hands?" Ethan's voice came through clearly. "Dowry?" Victoria's tone turned icy. The Clarks didn't have time to deal with her. They stared at the screen, at Ethan. In the dim light, his venomous eyes were particularly startling. Amelia took a step back. Is that Ethan?" The video continued to play. "The night before you woke up, Victoria begged me for it 3 whole times, right there by your bed. My body drives her wild." Ethan saw Victoria no longer cared why her dowry had ended up in Ethan's hands. An unprecedented terror threatened to consume her. Ethan saw how dare he. Melody had long known about Ethan and Victoria's affair, but hearing him say it out loud still sent stabs of pain through her heart. Victoria's reaction, however, was even more chilling. "Victoria, Ethan loves you so much. If it weren't for you go to hell on the screen." Ethan viciously pushed Sincere. Melody watched in horror as her brother, in the instant he fell, pulled Ethan down the stairs with him. Her face went pale, and she collapsed onto a hospital bench. How could Ethan be so cruel to her brother? She had installed those cameras herself, but she hadn't even bothered to watch the footage before concluding that her brother had pushed Ethan. Melody clutched her hair in agony. How could this happen? Ethan was always so kind and gentle. Sebastian's face grew darker and darker as he read the vile comments online. Finally, he exploded with rage. It must have been Sincere who leaked the video. He's brought shame upon the entire Clark family. That rebellious son Sebastian turned and stormed back towards the hospital room. Just as he reached the door, a doctor ran out as if he'd seen a ghost. Bumping into Sebastian and Amelia, he slapped his thigh in distress. "Mr. Clark, CEO Lowell, it's terrible. Mr. Sincere has passed away." "What did you say?" Victoria's eyes instantly filled with a terrifying bloody rage. She grabbed the doctor by the collar. "Who passed away?" "He just woke up." The doctor was on the verge of tears. "Mr. Sincere Clark has indeed passed on." Amelia, who had followed them, heard the words and went limp, nearly collapsing. Sebastian quickly caught his wife. Amelia gripped his hand tightly, her lips white. "Passed on?" Sebastian's face was ashen. "He's given blood for 20 years. He's not going to die that easily." Turning to the doctor, who had nearly been strangled, Sebastian roared, "How much did Sincere pay you? How dare you conspire with him to lie to his own parents? Is he afraid I'll hold him accountable for airing our dirty laundry?" That unfilial son, the doctor, who had just been thrown to the ground by Victoria, was trembling and at a loss for words. This was a private hospital owned by the Lowell Corporation. It wasn't his place to question things. Mr. Clark had already lost so much blood. He couldn't withstand. The doctor's genuine expression sent a chill down Victoria's spine, like being plunged into an ice cave. For a moment, she didn't dare enter the room to confirm. Instead, she unleashed her helpless fury, slapping the doctor across the face. "How dare you curse him? He's not going to die." The scene was chaotic. Sebastian, struggling to support his limp wife, rushed into the room and ripped off the white sheet. "Sincere Clark, are you done with your act? Get up." The anger on Sebastian's face froze, replaced by shock and helplessness. Amelia, in his arms, was drowned by a tsunami of fear and regret. The air around her was cut off, and she gasped for breath but couldn't take any in. The lingering unease had become a reality. Her mind echoed with her son's faint thread like cries of "Mom." The word "hurts" became a sharp blade that sliced open her heart. How much pain must he have been in? Finally, Amelia let out a mournful cry. Sincere outside the room, Victoria heard the heart-wrenching sound. Her face, flushed with anger, instantly turned deathly pale. Her raised hand froze in midair. She didn't know how she made it into the room. When she entered, Sebastian was trying to help a collapsed Amelia to her feet, but her legs were too weak to stand. Finally, she fell forward onto the cold corpse. Large tears rolled down her cheeks, landing on the corner of the corpse's mouth. Amelia's trembling hands caressed her son's stiff face. She couldn't believe that his last mom was his final call to her. When she spoke again, her voice was terrifyingly hoarse. "Mom just wanted you to save Ethan. Why did you have to go? Sincere, wake up." Amelia pressed her cheek against her son's forehead, trying to give him some warmth, but the icy touch made her shiver in pain. "Mommy will never say you're naughty again. Don't scare Mommy, okay?" "Sincere," Amelia sobbed. She had once sworn to give her son the best of everything in the world, but somewhere along the way she began to think he was disobedient, that he was inferior to her adopted son in every way. She became stingy with her affection, denying him even a shred of care. Even in his final 2 days, all she gave him was endless criticism. Now her child was dead. The memories she couldn't bear to recall became sharp fragments that, with every breath, carried the emotion of guilt and slashed at every nerve in her body. Amelia remembered when her son was born, so small and soft, lying quietly in her arms. Her heart had overflowed with joy and emotion. She had promised to protect him. But her son had left before her, and she was the one who had personally plunged the fatal needle into his vein. "What have I done to you?" Sincere Victoria stared blankly at the body on the bed. Amidst Amelia's heart-wrenching sobs, her knees slammed onto the floor. Her heart felt as if it were being squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain so intense she wished she could die on the spot. "Sincere." Victoria crawled towards the bed on her knees. It was only a few meters, but it felt impossibly far. She reached out to touch him, but only felt the bone-chilling cold of his fingertips. This was not the temperature of a living person. Grief instantly shattered her. "You're joking with me, right? Sincere, how could you bear to leave me? I'll die without you, Sincere." We were about to get married at the doorway. Melody had finally gathered the courage to apologize to her brother on Ethan's behalf. She also planned to question him about leaking the video and had even prepared a speech for him to give at a press conference, claiming the video was just a prank between brothers. Otherwise, how would Ethan ever be able to show his face in public again? But the scene before her was completely unexpected. Her head spun. Her brother was dead. Melody walked dazedly to the bedside. Before she could get a closer look at her brother, Victoria, on the floor, spotted her and stood up like a crazed beast, grabbing her. "You killed him." Victoria slapped Melody across the face several times. "You drained Sincere's blood." Melody was hit so hard she lost 2 teeth. She stared at Victoria, her eyes so red they looked like they would drip blood. Grief and regret turned into a towering inferno of hatred. "It was you who killed my brother. If you hadn't cheated on him with Ethan, my brother wouldn't have died, you shameless homewrecker. You turned them against each other. Shut up." Victoria had lost all reason. The two of them began to fight, both intending to kill. It was Ethan's attending physician who finally broke up the brawl. He looked at the 2 bruised and battered heiresses and swallowed nervously. "Mr. Shaw, he still needs blood." "Blood?" Victoria scrambled up from the floor and limped towards the doctor. She was covered in scratches from her fight with Melody, and a trickle of crimson blood ran from the corner of her mouth, making her look like a vengeful demon. "He still needs blood?" The doctor trembled. "Mr. Shaw has aplastic anemia, and he hit his head this time, so of course he needs a transfusion. How much blood does he need to be satisfied? Did he have to push Sincere to his death? Sincere is already dead. Can't you even leave the dead alone?" After watching the video, Victoria had finally painfully realized that Ethan was not the gentle, harmless person he appeared to be, and she had betrayed Sincere for this sinister, vicious man. The doctor, finally understanding the full picture, shuddered. Who would dare ask Mr. Sincere for blood? Mr. Sincere was already severely injured. The taste of salt and iron rose in Victoria's throat. The doctor had advised her against letting the patient donate blood, but she had insisted she had ignored his pleas, extinguishing the last glimmer of light in his eyes. He had a chance to be saved, but she had left him to go see Ethan. She had personally killed the love of her life. He had died here, all alone. Victoria clutched her aching chest and coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Give it back, yes, give it back." Amelia, her mind slightly unhinged, saw Victoria spit blood and was reminded of her son's words. She pushed Sebastian away and ran out of the room. Victoria now felt nothing but hatred for Ethan. The unbearable grief made it almost impossible to walk. She supported herself against the wall and followed Amelia to the operating room. Opened the door with the order from the hospital's owner. The operating room door was opened. Ethan, on the operating table, had heard the commotion outside and was pretending to be unconscious. Amelia saw the nearly empty blood bag, lunged for it, and tore at the IV tube. The needle scraped Ethan's skin, and a startling amount of blood spurted out, coiling like a viper's tongue. "This is Syncere's blood. Give it back." Amelia's long nails dug into Ethan's wound, the pain excruciating. Ethan struggled to keep his expression from contorting, pretending to wake up groggily and looking around in confusion. "Where am I?" Ethan Shaw. How could Victoria not see it now? Ethan was never in a condition where he would die without a transfusion. He had counted on the Clark family forcing Sincere to give blood. Even if it didn't kill Sincere, it would make him lose all hope in her and his family. You killed Sincere, well what? How could Big Bro? Ethan's mouth twitched, the sheer ecstasy of the news almost making him laugh out loud. He quickly lowered his head, feigning shock and sorrow. Sigh. Even though Big Bro pushed me down the stairs, I never blamed him. I never thought he would end up harming himself, leaving so suddenly. Now that Big Bro is gone, let's let bygones be bygones. From now on, I will take care of Mom, Dad, Melody, and you, Victoria, in his place. I'm sure Big Bro would want us to be well in the afterlife." Contrary to what Ethan expected, Victoria strode forward and slapped him off the bed. "Take his place? You think you're worthy?" Ethan sprawled on the floor, clutching his swollen cheek in astonishment. He looked up wretchedly at the woman who had once moaned beneath him, the woman he had spent his days and nights with. "You still can't let go of Big Bro? He's already dead." Ethan beat his chest, crying, "Why can't I ever compare to him? Even in death you still can't see me. I'm the one who truly loves you." Victoria laughed cruelly. "Love? A bed warmer like you dares to speak of love? To you I was just a bed warmer?" Ethan smiled wryly. "Victoria Lowell, yes, I'm shameless. But it was because I loved you that I risked everything, and your precious, saintly, Sincere Clark tried to get rid of me by pushing me down the stairs the moment he woke up. Your heart is still only for him." Victoria was amazed that he could lie so brazenly and with such conviction. She played the video on her phone and threw it at him. "For all these years, this is how you've twisted the truth and slandered Sincere, isn't it? Take a good look for yourself. You're the one who pushed Sincere down the stairs." Ethan's resentment and grievances were shattered by the images on the screen, replaced by pure shock and panic.
What? When were there cameras installed by the stairs?
He instinctively looked at Amelia, the mother who had doted on him. "It's gone," Amelia sobbed, clutching the empty blood bag. "Sincere, they're all murderers. Mommy will make them pay." With that, she turned to Ethan, ready to draw his blood. "Give it back. You give it back." Ethan scrambled away, his heart sinking to the pit of his stomach. Sincere could die, but not because of him. Call the police. Victoria had no desire to watch this farce any longer. She was about to dial the number to send Ethan to prison. Sebastian frantically stopped her. "No, we were all involved in the blood transfusion. We'll all go down." "I don't care." Victoria snatched her phone back. Sebastian played his trump card. "I just agreed to let Sincere marry Miss Windsor. Since Ethan killed Sincere, he should go to the Windsor family to atone for his sin. You should know that even your Lowell family is no match for the Windsors." The Windsors? The blood in Victoria's veins ran cold. "Sincere was my fiancé. You wanted him to marry someone else without even asking me, and you wanted him to marry Linda Windsor. She's a madwoman. As the head of the Lowell family, Victoria naturally knew the secret the Windsors tried so hard to hide, that Linda Windsor crippled her last two fiancés and you wanted Sincere to marry her? Sebastian's face was beet red. Even if Linda is a madwoman, at least she wouldn't have cheated on Sincere. Victoria's face was so dark it looked like it would drip water. But she had, in fact, betrayed Sincere. She had no rebuttal. You told me Linda Windsor was the sole heiress, that if Sincere married her, he'd be the future head of the Windsor family. Amelia, overhearing their conversation, went numb. Her fingertips trembled as she looked at her husband in sorrow, tears streaming down her face. Sebastian Clark, how could you lie to me? Amelia, I didn't lie, Sebastian explained hurriedly. Mr. Windsor agreed that Sincere wouldn't have to have contact with Miss Windsor. The family just wanted a respectable father for their heir. As long as Linda had a child through IVF, the entire Windsor fortune would essentially be his. You just wanted to use our son as a breeding tool. You were going to ruin his entire life. Amelia's mind flashed with the image of her son's corpse, and she covered her face, sobbing. My child has no future now. Sebastian Clark, you can't sell your son anymore. Sebastian's expression was grim, his fierce eyes landing on Ethan. You killed Sincere. Go to the Windsor family and pay for your crime. Melody, sweating with anxiety, interjected. Dad, you've already wronged Sincere. Are you going to hurt Ethan too? How can Ethan marry a madwoman? Ethan crawled to Sebastian, clutching his pants and begging pitifully. Dad, I'm the son you've doted on for over 20 years. I don't want to marry Miss Windsor. Please, I'm begging you. Sebastian mercilessly pulled his leg away, his face dark. Marry? You think you're worthy? You're just a plaything for Miss Windsor. Ethan's face turned ashen. He couldn't imagine how he would be tortured and humiliated by a mentally ill person. He had been a wealthy young master for over 20 years, living a life of luxury. How could he become a madwoman's plaything? Victoria, for the sake of our 3 years together, please help me, won't you? Linda Windsor will beat me to death. Victoria was unmoved. Her dark, sinister eyes glinted with a sharp, cold light. You wanted to take Sincere's place so badly, so you can take his place in suffering too. It wouldn't be hard for the Lowell family to bribe the Windsor's staff to whisper poison in Linda's ear, to make her torment Ethan to death. Ethan Shaw, I won't let you have an easy time. An indescribable fear spread from his heart, a chill seeping into his very bones. How did it come to this? It wasn't supposed to be like this. Sincere Clark is dead. I'm the only young master of the Clark family. I'll be the future head of the Lowell and Clark families. How can I be with a madwoman? I won't. Victoria paid no attention to Ethan's protests. Whether he went to the Windsors or not was not up to him. With the main culprit temporarily dealt with, pain and regret returned like a shadow, chewing and swallowing Victoria's soul. She returned to her room, forcibly taking the body back to the Lowell family mansion. Amelia, unable to bear the loss of her son, came to fight for him. Victoria declared that Sincere was her husband, locked herself in the room, and shared a bed with the corpse. In the end, it was Eleanor Lowell, returning from abroad, who had the door broken down. She ordered Victoria to be knocked unconscious and had the decaying body sent to the crematorium. When Victoria woke up, she caused another scene, demanding that the ashes be buried in the Lowell family's ancestral plot. As the Lowell and Clark families fought, rumors ran rampant. Victoria had cheated on her fiancé with his adoptive brother. Her image as a devoted lover collapsed, especially since Sincere had cared for her for 3 years and had likely become a comatose patient from exhaustion. Victoria's infidelity sparked public outrage, and she was vilified online. Victoria didn't care about her reputation. She fought for Sincere's ashes. In the end, both sides compromised, and Sincere's ashes were buried in a public cemetery. The two families then argued endlessly over whether the tombstone should be inscribed with beloved husband or beloved son. Once the body was taken care of, Victoria rushed to the Clark house to collect Syncere's belongings. But many things had already been burned. She couldn't find a single trace of their time together among his possessions. He had known all along that she was cheating. In the center of the yard, she could still see the remnants of ash. The word dirty, he had said, echoed in her mind, eventually turning into countless arrows piercing her chest. Victoria was in so much pain that she curled up on the ground, but nothing could alleviate the discomfort. Sincere Victoria Lowell, look at this. Amelia walked over to her. She had been a wealthy socialite for half her life, her meticulously maintained hair once black and lustrous. In just a few days it had turned mostly a glaring white. Amelia's eyes were hollow, her face deeply lined with fatigue. Victoria, disheveled and dirty, looked up, her eyes landing on the letter in Amelia's hand. She had a premonition, her heart beating rapidly as she took the letter with trembling hands. It was as she expected from Sincere. She opened it. There were only a few sentences on the page. Dad, Mom, Melody, once I'm dead, I won't owe Ethan Shaw anything, right? Victoria Lowell, we're over. Anything that doesn't belong to me, I no longer want. The paper was light, but it felt like a 1,000,000-ton boulder, pressing down on her heart until it crushed her. Victoria collapsed to her knees, sobbing her heart out. Sincere, but he would never answer her again. She had to face the gut-wrenching realization that from the moment she chose betrayal, she was destined to lose him. He had given up on her long ago. Victoria covered her face, a beast-like wail escaping her lips. Sincere. Amelia silently bent down, picked up the letter, and went back inside. Under the setting sun, Amelia's once straight back was stooped, her thin figure casting a lonely, desolate shadow. We all wronged Sincere. Victoria Lowell, spend the rest of your life atoning. Victoria's heart bled. They were Sincere's nearest and dearest. If just one of them had cared about him, he wouldn't have died. The gnawing guilt left Victoria in utter agony. What had she done? Victoria didn't know how she got home. All she knew was that in any moment of clarity, the suffering she had inflicted on Sincere felt like a sharp saw grating back and forth on her heart, bloody and relentless. Victoria shut herself away, numbing her nerves with alcohol. Until one day, she began to be tormented by bizarre nightmares. The settings of the dreams were not limited to the modern era, but also included ancient times, fantasy, martial arts, war-torn eras, apocalypses, interstellar worlds, and even the mid to late 20th century. No matter the dream, she was, without exception, cannon fodder. She was used, betrayed, and trampled upon again and again. It seemed to be a fate she could never escape, but reality was more terrifying than the dreams. Victoria couldn't face the pain of having killed the love of her life and preferred to sink into the illusions, to be bullied time and time again. Physical pain was better than mental anguish. After dying thousands upon thousands of times, Victoria returned to the beginning of the dream, once again becoming the cannon fodder for others to abuse. The her in the dream fought against fate with all her might, enduring even greater humiliation and hardship than before. Victoria felt like an outsider, yet she keenly experienced the suffering of the person in the dream. The her in the dream eventually rewrote her fate, but what she felt was not joy but mostly sorrow. As a child, Victoria had witnessed her father's death, and she and her mother were bullied and suppressed by their uncles. She endured humiliation and bided her time to reclaim her position as the head of the Lowell family. Her willpower was undeniably strong. Yet she would rather have followed her fate in those countless dreams and become a stepping stone for the protagonist. Why not just give up? What was the point of all this hardship? Victoria watched as she was knocked down again and again. Just when she thought she would finally give up, she would stand up once more. Her heart went from numb to moved. Finally, in the last dream, two souls were violently pulled from the original host's body. She saw Sincere Clark. Sincere, you finally came to see me? Victoria rushed toward Sincere, but his soul dissipated into a sky full of starlight the moment she got close. Only when she fell did he coalesce again. She couldn't touch him, couldn't hold him. Victoria looked at his ethereal form, tears streaming down her face. "Sincere, don't leave me." Sincere's eyes shone, his voice filled with excitement. "I've completed all the missions, changed the fate of 3,000 cannon fodders, and changed your fate of an early death. I can come back to you now. Victoria, we'll be happy, right?" A clap of thunder exploded in Victoria's mind. She understood everything. The her in the dreams was Sincere. He had traveled through thousands of worlds for her. She couldn't even stand one world, but he had endured them all. How purely and passionately did he love her? But she had failed him. She had lost the person who loved her most in the world. Victoria tried again and again to grab him, all in vain. "No, Sincere, don't go, come back." Sincere's eyes fell, filled with sorrow, and his soul began to turn transparent. "Victoria Lowell, it seems we were fated to meet, but not to be together. Goodbye, Victoria Lowell." Victoria watched, her heart breaking, as he went from joy to sorrow, and finally left her forever. "No, Sincere," Victoria screamed as she woke from her dream, horrified to find herself back in reality. "Sincere, I have to find Sincere." Eleanor rushed into the room, saw the empty bottles on the floor, and slapped her daughter twice in anger. Slap, slap, Victoria wouldn't be still. She struggled to her feet and grabbed her mother's shoulders, her eyes bloodshot. "Mom, it was Sincere who saved me. He's the one who kept me alive. He has a system. He can't be dead. I have to find him." Eleanor pushed Victoria away and slapped a file against her face. "First, take a look at who put you in a coma for 3 years. Victoria ignored the pain in her face and knelt on the floor, snatching up the file. For the past 3 years, she had never stopped investigating the truth of the car accident. If it hadn't been for that accident, she and Sincere would have been married long ago. When she saw who the evidence pointed to, her eyes widened in fury. "It really was him, Mom. You had clues 3 years ago?" Victoria wasn't surprised by who had caused the accident, but she was shocked by her mother's deliberate concealment. "When you had the accident, you were on the brink of death. Too many people were circling like vultures, trying to devour the Lowell Corporation. I had to support the group and never had the extra energy to investigate thoroughly. Then you woke up. The Lowell Corporation launched a full investigation and traced it back to Ethan Shaw, just as he became Victoria's lover. Ethan's target was originally Sincere. Hitting you was an accident. You were caught in the crossfire because of Sincere, but he was devoted to you, and he even ended up in a coma from taking care of you. I couldn't advise you to abandon him. But the Lowell family can't be without an heir. What if he never woke up? So you thought I should have a child with Ethan first, right?" Victoria clenched her fists. "If Ethan hadn't interfered, Sincere and I would have had a child long ago, and Sincere would never have left me." Eleanor's expression was grim. "In any case, it's impossible for you and any of them now. Instead of drowning your sorrows here, you should go and settle the score with Ethan Shaw. As far as I know, he was never sent to the Windsor family." How dare the Clarks' anger and indignation churned in Victoria's chest. Ethan Shaw had killed Sincere Clark. The Clark family had been cruel enough to force their own son to marry Linda Windsor, but they couldn't bear to part with their precious adopted son. Victoria immediately drove to the Clark residence to confront them. The result she found was that Melody Clark was pregnant. Pregnant? Victoria's mind hadn't caught up yet. She sneered, "You call me shameless, but in the end, your precious Clark daughter ends up in bed with a man and even gets pregnant, ha? I don't care how many children Melody has. Ethan Shaw must go to the Windsor family. The Clark family has some nerve hiding him away. Don't think you can just let this go." Victoria, fighting back her nausea, reached out to grab Ethan. "Come with me to the Windsors." But Melody pulled Ethan behind her, shielding him protectively. Victoria's face darkened. "Melody Clark, get out of my way. Ethan Shaw must go to the Windsor family to atone for his sins." Victoria was merciless, about to drag Ethan away forcefully. Melody, trying to protect both her stomach and Ethan, cried out, "Victoria, are you crazy if you take Ethan away? What about my child?" The air was deathly still. Sebastian, standing by, blushed with shame and gritted his teeth. This rebellious daughter is carrying Ethan Shaw's child. The Windsor family was furious, thinking we were deliberately humiliating Miss Windsor. The Clark family has suffered heavy losses. Victoria was incredulous, her gaze like a sword shooting towards Melody's abdomen. He killed your own brother and you slept with him? Melody Clark, you've lost your mind. What do you want me to do? I'm carrying Ethan's child, Melody said angrily. I don't have a brother anymore. Do you want my child to be without a father too? You don't deserve to call Sincere your brother. Incest between siblings. The reputation of the Clark family has been ruined by these two animals. Sebastian, standing by, grew angrier and more frustrated as he thought about it, cursing under his breath. Victoria's knuckles turned white from clenching her fists too hard. She couldn't take it anymore and raised her hand to hit Melody. Sebastian blocked her. What's the use of hitting them? Sincere is already dead. The Clark family has been hit hard by the Windsors. We can't afford any more trouble. Besides, Melody is set on Ethan. The child in her belly is the only heir to the Clark family. If something happens to Ethan, the father, what will Melody and her child do? Let's just leave it at that for now. Leave it at that? Victoria was chilled by the Clark family's callousness. Ethan Shaw killed Sincere as Sincere's father. You're actually agreeing to let Melody have the murderer's child? You don't deserve to be Sincere's family. Neighbors, hearing the commotion, gathered outside, whispering and pointing. Sebastian, who had always cared about his reputation, was flushed with shame and couldn't lift his head. Let's go inside and talk. Victoria threw off Sebastian's hand, her sinister gaze fixed on them as she squeezed out a sentence from between her teeth. From now on, it's war between the Clark and Lowell families. The Clark Corporation was originally slightly weaker than the Lowell Corporation, which was why they had tolerated her involvement with both brothers and had even wanted Ethan to marry her. Later, the Windsor Corporation, having been played twice regarding Miss Windsor, had dealt a severe blow to the Clark Corporation. Even so, the Clark Corporation's strength was now on par with the Lowell Corporation's. Victoria's devoted partner persona had crumbled, and she had been drinking heavily and neglecting her duties. Her ambitious uncles had made a comeback, and the Lowell Corporation was facing both internal and external threats. And at this very moment, Victoria declared war on her longtime ally, the Clark family. The two families' interests were deeply intertwined. The Clark Corporation would be severely damaged, and the Lowell Corporation would not benefit either. Victoria didn't care. She clung to the Clark family like a mad dog, while Melody, to protect her husband, showed no mercy either. As the two families fought to a mutually destructive standstill, Sincere had been successfully reincarnated in the body of Sincere Morgan, the young master of the Morgan Group, for 3 months. In front of the canvas, a tabby cat snoozed lazily at his feet. Sincere was engrossed in his creation, tireless. Host Sincere Morgan was as naive as a child, but he had a remarkable talent for art. The Morgan family hired several internationally renowned masters to teach him sketching, traditional painting, oil painting, watercolor. The young master Morgan's decade-plus of painting skills have been integrated into his muscle memory. Why are you working so hard? Sincere didn't stop his brush. System, these skills are not truly mine. Only through constant practice can I truly master them. Besides, I want to paint the stories of the past 3,000 small worlds. Those innocent people who were trampled and killed by the protagonists, who sacrificed their souls to wish for a change in the past. They were all pure and good souls. They deserve to be seen. Sincere. Late at night, Maria Morgan came in with a glass of warm milk, her gentle, loving gaze fixed on her son. Sincere, it's time to rest. Thanks, Mom. Sincere took the milk and drank it in small sips. When he first woke up, Sincere was very uncomfortable and couldn't bring himself to call Maria Mom. It was her boundless maternal love that finally broke down his defenses. He was very lucky to have a new life with the Morgan family. Sincere had initially asked about the original host's whereabouts. The Morgan couple has done good deeds for half their lives. Their merits have blessed Sincere Morgan with reincarnation into another happy and prosperous family. You don't need to worry, host. The system has made arrangements with the powers that be. The Morgan family will not notice anything unusual. From now on, you are Sincere Morgan. Maria stared at her son in a daze, lovingly stroking his soft hair. Sincere, you used to have the mind of a child. I was always worried that after your father and I were gone, your sister wouldn't be able to protect you. And even if she could, once she had her own family, how much energy would she have to take care of you? I just couldn't rest easy. Thank goodness the heavens took pity on us. Maria choked up, her beautiful eyes shimmering with tears. Looking at her son's clear, bright eyes, Maria burst into tears. Sincere, you've finally grown up. Even if I'm not around anymore, I won't have to worry about you being bullied. Feeling Maria's overwhelming love, Sincere's heart ached. For the first time, he gathered the courage to hug her. Mom. Maria was stunned for a moment, then laughed through her tears, hugging her son back tightly. Sincere, my child. Mom has finally waited for this day. Outside the door, his father and sister heard the commotion and rushed over. Marcus Morgan, his eyes red, stepped forward and pulled his wife into his arms. All right, it's a good thing Sincere is back to normal. Don't cry. Maria cried even harder. I just feel so bad for Sincere. So many people have laughed at our Sincere behind his back, calling him a fool. Just like the Windsor family's daughter. The Windsors are ruthless, but people still gossip about Linda being a madwoman. Marcus tenderly wiped the tears from his wife's face. He comforted her, honey. Our Sincere is all better now. If anyone dares to call him a little fool again, I, Marcus Morgan, will make them my enemy. Ivy Morgan walked in. Since Big Bro is better, let's take him out for a spin. Let everyone see that my brother is not a fool. You child, Maria playfully slapped Ivy's shoulder. What do you mean for a spin? Your brother isn't a donkey or a horse. Ivy quickly begged for mercy. Mom, I was wrong. I mean, let's take Big Bro out to stun everyone. Ivy held her mother's hand, her face full of pride. Mom, you have no idea. The board of directors was absolutely blown away by Big Bro's artwork. They're urging me to buy the copyright immediately. They've unanimously decided to print the comics and publish them. They said it's going to be a huge hit. If they knew the author was my brother, wouldn't they just die of shock? Hearing this, Maria couldn't help but wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes. My Sincere has finally had his hardships turn into blessings. The scene before him made Sincere's heart tremble. He had already given up on expecting any familial love. So this is what it feels like to be cared for. Sincere made up his mind. He would protect the Morgan family on behalf of the original host. No one would ever harm his family. There have been quite a few auctions and concerts recently, but they're all too small scale. Maria was now worrying about her son's first appearance in their social circle after his recovery. Sigh, we haven't even had time to get Sincere a proper suit. Marcus had an idea. Next month is the Sterling family patriarch's 80th birthday. All the socialites of Viridia will be there. Why don't we take Sincere? That's a great idea. Maria clapped her hands with a smile. Then everyone will know Sincere has recovered. Speaking of which, it's quite a coincidence. The head of the Sterling family, Arya Sterling, also suddenly woke up 3 months ago, just a few days apart from our Sincere.
Arya Sterling?
Hearing the familiar name, Sincere was taken aback. The awakened villain NPC from the first world, who had appeared as different characters by his side in every subsequent world. Every one of her names had the character for sound or aria in it. Was it a coincidence? When Victoria burst into the study, her nearly 60-year-old mother was exhaustedly cleaning up the mess she had left, desperately trying to save the precarious Lowell Corporation. Seeing her disappointing daughter, Eleanor's anger flared. I told you the truth about the car accident to give you something to do, not to make you an enemy of the Clark family. Are you trying to bring down the entire Lowell Corporation? Victoria paid her no mind, anxiously holding a book up to her mother. "Mom, quick, tell me who the author of this comic is and where they are." The Lowell Corporation owned a sizable comic platform, one of its main businesses, which had survived a business war with the Clark Corporation thanks to its strong fan base. Now, it was facing a challenge from the Morgan Group. Originally, the Morgan Group's focus was not on comics. Eleanor said irritably, "This comic series is the Morgan Group's main project recently. I specifically bought it to read. The story is exquisite and the art is masterful. The contracted artists at Lowell couldn't imitate it even if they tried. The author is a rising star in the art world, with the pen name Zephyr." "Zephyr?" Victoria's eyes lit up with excitement. "It's him. He's back. How do you know him?" Eleanor was surprised. "Everyone says Zephyr is the young master of the Morgan Group, Sincere Morgan. If the Lowell Corporation could sign even one of his works, it might solve our current predicament. But unfortunately, why would the young master of the Morgan Group sign with us?" Thinking of this, Eleanor shot Victoria a glare, her disappointment palpable. That young Morgan was intellectually disabled for over 20 years, and the moment he recovers, he becomes a genius painter. "You're 28, and all you do is cause trouble." The thought made Eleanor's hatred deepen. What if Victoria hadn't cheated? Ethan would have been in prison 3 years ago, and she would be happily married to Sincere now. In the end, you're the one who made a mess of everything, but Victoria was lost in the joy of finding her love, holding the comic book, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Eleanor grew even angrier. "You both ended up in a coma, but look at the head of the Sterling family, Arya Sterling. She woke up less than 4 months ago and has already managed the Sterling Corporation impeccably. What have you been doing for the past 3 years? Arya Sterling? It's her, she really did follow him here," Victoria shouted in terror, as if she had been provoked. "We can't let that woman see Sincere. Where is Sincere Morgan? I have to see him." Eleanor frowned deeply. "Sincere is dead. Sincere Morgan is sincere." Victoria clutched the book. It contained everything she had experienced in her dreams, or rather, the 3,000 missions Sincere had actually completed. Only Sincere could have drawn it. "I have to see him. I have to beg for his forgiveness." Eleanor broke out in a cold sweat. "I think you've lost your mind from grief. How could the young master of the Morgan family and Sincere Clark be the same person?" "It is him." Victoria's face was filled with excitement and fervor as she rushed out. Eleanor was mentally and physically exhausted. She ordered her men to lock Victoria up. "Let me out, I want to see Sincere." Victoria, like a rabid beast, kicked the door with a deafening noise. "Mom, I want Sincere." "Sincere, ah." Sincere. Eleanor rubbed her aching temples. "When your father died suddenly, I had no time for you. It was Sincere who helped you out of that dark place. I know he's very important to you, but Sincere is dead. I saw him cremated with my own eyes." "Stop this, Victoria. Mom, Sincere isn't dead. Let me out." Victoria knelt on the floor, kowtowing. "Sincere is still waiting for me. Mom, he loves me so much. He would never leave me. Mom." How could Eleanor believe such an absurd story? She became even more certain that her daughter had lost her mind. Eleanor suppressed her inner sorrow. "Victoria, you need to calm down. I'm doing this for your own good. If you displease the young master of the Morgan family, the Lowell family won't be able to protect you. Big bro, don't be afraid. I'm here." In the car on the way to the Sterling estate, Ivy Morgan, seeing her brother's silence, playfully waved her hand. "If anyone dares to make my brother unhappy, I'll slap them." Sincere. Morgan chuckled. "I'm not scared. I was just thinking that the head of the Sterling family also happened to become a comatose patient 3 years ago." "Also?" Ivy scratched her head. "Who else?" Sincere's heart skipped a beat. How could he be so careless? I know Ivy had a sudden realization. "Big bro, you're talking about the young master of the Clark family, right?" The news about the Clark and Lowell families has been all over the place these past few months. Maria had heard some of it. "I heard that the boy was pushed down the stairs by his adopted brother the night he was discharged from the hospital, and was then forced by his family and fiancée to give blood, which led to his death. After the incident was exposed, the Clark family did everything to protect the adopted son. Maria shook her head. The Clarks kept saying that the adopted son's father had saved their son's life, but does that mean the young Clark should have to give up his own life for it? Speaking of which, that adopted son is so ruthless. It's hard to imagine his father would be willing to risk his life to save his employer's child. I think there might be something suspicious about that car accident 20-something years ago. Sincere couldn't help but be lost in thought. Back then, as a person involved, he was too caught up in sadness and injustice. Now thinking back, the Clarks' favoritism towards Ethan was because Ethan's father had saved his life. But did Ethan's father really save him? Alright, let's not talk about such heavy topics. Ivy changed the subject. Speaking of the head of the Sterling family, she's a legendary figure of comebacks. Her parents had a business marriage and didn't love each other. After Mrs. Sterling became pregnant, her father, Mr. Sterling, blatantly moved in with his first love. Mrs. Sterling committed suicide due to postpartum depression, and the old Mr. Sterling firmly refused to let the other woman into the family. That mother and son pair always held a grudge. Ivy chattered on about the Sterling family gossip. Arya Sterling's accident was orchestrated by that illegitimate son. After Arya Sterling woke up, she swiftly took back her position as head of the family, sent her dear half-brother to prison for life. Her scumbag dad even had a stroke from anger, ha. Ivy was delighted, as if she were watching a real-life drama of a wealthy family's comeback. Maria nodded. Thanks to old Mr. Sterling all these years, the vast Sterling family fortune didn't fall into the hands of that illegitimate son. The head of the Sterling family takes her grandfather's birthday very seriously. The old man is actually a very serious and traditional person, Marcus added. That child has had it tough. Sincere quietly listened to Arya Sterling's life story, summarized in a few sentences. Behind those words was a heavy past. He didn't know if Arya Sterling was the awakened villain from the first world. If she was, he finally understood why she had such an obsessive personality. Just because he had unintentionally saved her in a snowy night, she had given up on destroying the world and had entangled herself with him for 3,000 lifetimes. She had never been loved, which was why she craved it so desperately. She clung to any bit of warmth and refused to let go. As Sincere was pondering this, the car stopped at the entrance of the Sterling estate. The Sterling residence was bustling with activity. Arya Sterling had secured her position as the head of the family with lightning speed, leading the Sterling Corporation to new heights. Whether they had received an invitation or not, guests were scrambling to attend the birthday celebration. In the past few months, the Morgan family had also been a hot topic. The guests were very interested in the young master of the Morgan family, who had been born with an intellectual disability, had suddenly regained his senses, and had become a genius painter. Before the car even came to a complete stop, all eyes were on them. Is this the young master of the Morgan family, Sincere Morgan? That posture, that inherent nobility? He looks like someone carefully cultivated by a prestigious family. He just regained his senses. How could he have learned so much social etiquette in such a short time? Maybe he was never disabled at all. Maybe he didn't attend banquets before because he was busy conceiving his stories. Otherwise, how could he have produced such amazing work all of a sudden? The young master of the Morgan family isn't disabled. He's a prodigy. Those paintings are not something an ordinary person could create. Exactly, he's an artist. This just goes to show how terrible rumors can be. The young Morgan just wanted to stay home and create, and people were whispering behind his back that the Morgan family had a little fool for a son. Rumors are so scary. Sincere's image in the minds of the guests was instantly reversed. Wealthy socialites eagerly chatted with Maria, subtly introducing their single daughters. Many young ladies from prestigious families also approached Sincere. Sincere handled them with polite grace. Just as he was talking to a poised and proper young lady, an intensely hot gaze fell upon him. Turning around, Sincere met a pair of red-rimmed eyes. It was her.
System, is Arya Sterling her?
Arya Sterling and the her from those 3,000 worlds all looked different, but their eyes were the same. They all held a deep, almost fanatical love. But how did she come to the real world? The system confessed, there is no so-called real world. This world, like those small worlds, is formed from novels. You and Arya Sterling are both cannon fodder background characters.
So I'm cannon fodder too?
A sense of injustice rose in Syncere's heart. Why could an author so easily write their tragic short lives with just a few strokes of a pen? They weren't paper characters. They had flesh and blood. They could feel pain and cry. Where there are protagonists, there are supporting characters. It's just that some protagonists have twisted morals and harm innocent supporting characters, causing the small worlds to fill with resentment and verge on collapse. That's why the Master God binds task-doers to go and correct the plot. The system's tone was tinged with fear. I also just found out that Arya Sterling's soul was scattered across 3,000 worlds. She originally planned to destroy every small world and then destroy the Master God. But she met you. Every time she fell in love with you, she would awaken the memories of her previous fragments, eventually piecing them together and returning here. To be precise, the villain didn't chase you for 3,000 lifetimes. She fell helplessly in love with you in every single lifetime. Syncere's heart trembled. In those thousands of worlds, he had steadfastly and stubbornly pursued his one and only goal to be reunited with Victoria. And in a corner he couldn't see, there was someone who loved him just as deeply. The system, worried that Arya would turn dark again from unrequited love, played matchmaker. Because of you, the villain gave up on destroying the world thousands of times and is trying to love this world again. She's not like Victoria. She cares about you a lot. Tears welled up in Syncere's eyes. They had both stubbornly loved someone unworthy of their love. They were both the biggest fools in love. The system read its host's mind. How is he unworthy of love? You are brave, resilient, and perfect to be the salvation of such a crazy person. Kick that scum Victoria out of your heart and let Arya move in. The sad mood that had just formed in Syncere was scattered by the system. For a moment he didn't know how to face Arya Sterling. He saw in her a reflection of his former self, which filled him with guilt and pity. That wasn't love. After loving someone with all his heart, how could he so easily fall in love with another woman? As the system was anxiously spinning in circles, Arya Sterling walked up to Syncere. Unexpectedly, she didn't reveal their connection on the spot and launch into a fierce pursuit. Instead, she invited him to dance the first dance of the night. His large hand rested on her slender, soft waist, the other holding her delicate, fair hand. They danced in the center of the ballroom to the music. Looking into those familiar eyes, feeling the fiery passion beneath her calm exterior, Syncere recalled the scenes of her silently protecting him in lifetime after lifetime. He felt an incredible sense of peace. So he, who had been cast aside like a worn-out shoe by the Clark family and Victoria, could also be someone else's treasured possession. I have to say, the head of the Sterling family and the young master of the Morgan family look quite good together. They both recovered around the same time. Maybe it's fate, a match made in heaven. What a beautiful couple. The guest's whispers reached the ears of the Morgan family. "Honey." Maria tugged at her husband's sleeve. Marcus stroked his chin thoughtfully. Perhaps our Syncere's work has been so popular lately that CEO Sterling wants to collaborate with the Morgan Group, which is why she's being so friendly to Syncere. What if? Marcus patted his wife's hand reassuringly. CEO Sterling is talented and a good kid. Ivy cupped her chin in her hands, her eyes sparkling. Am I going to have a sister-in-law soon? And she's the head of a top-tier family in Viridia. Don't talk nonsense. Maria quickly stopped her daughter. Maybe CEO Sterling doesn't mean it that way. Ivy linked her arm with her mother's. Oh, Mom, I'm just happy for my brother. It's a good thing that CEO Sterling has taken a liking to my brother. No matter what, I won't be like Melody Clark, who got her own brother killed and then had a baby with the murderer. What kind of sister does that? Marcus sighed. The Clark family was once a first-rate family. It's only been a few months, and now they're so down on their luck they can't even show their faces at old Mr. Sterling's birthday banquet. Sebastian Clark worked hard his whole life, only to end up like this. As the family of three was talking, the dance on the floor came to an end. Aria's hand did not immediately leave Syncere's strong shoulder. Her palm rested against the thin fabric of his shirt, her warm touch sending an ambiguous heat through him. Her obsidian eyes gazed at him. "In this lifetime, should I call you Sincere?" She remembered the stories of those 3,000 lifetimes. She had recognized him at first glance. Sincere was moved. She had long, deep-set phoenix eyes that were cold and imposing to others, but when she looked at him, they were always filled with a deep, unyielding love. He had rejected her thousands of times. Perhaps this lifetime the ending would be different. Under Aria's expectant gaze, Sincere slowly raised his hand, his cool fingertips gently touching the mole at the corner of her eye. "Long time no see, Aria." Aria was so moved her eyes turned red and her body trembled. In the first lifetime, he was the crown prince, and she was a little beggar in the snow. He had saved her and named her Aria. After 3,000 lifetimes, he had finally heard that name again. Aria. Aria remembered becoming the first female general of the dynasty, fighting to the death to protect his kingdom. She had returned victorious, covered in blood, and died in his arms. His embrace was so warm. In every lifetime that followed, she had protected him with her life. This was her crown prince, her light and salvation. After recovering all her memories and returning to reality, she thought she would never see him again. It was so good that he was still here. Aria had so much to say to the crown prince she had thought of day and night. Before she could organize her thoughts, a hysterical scream came from a corner of the ballroom. Then a figure rushed towards them. Sincere, hearing that the young master of the Morgan family would be attending the Sterling's birthday banquet, Victoria had gone to great lengths to escape the Lowell mansion. She had run so hard that one of her shoes had fallen off. She had finally seen her love, but the scene before her stung her eyes. He was standing in front of another woman, gazing at her deeply as if no one else existed. Victoria would recognize that woman, even if she were turned to ash. In those small worlds, Aria Sterling had relentlessly pursued him 3,000 times. Victoria could no longer hold back and rushed out. Before she could get close enough to snatch her love back, she was quickly pinned to the ground by security guards. Victoria lifted her head to look at him, tears streaming down her face. "Sincere, I finally understand how you felt. To think you're finally going to be reunited, only to see your love with someone else. It doesn't feel good at all." Aria's face was as black as ink. It was this woman Victoria seemed oblivious to the cold, murderous intent. Pleading through her tears, "Sincere, don't leave me. Come back to me, please." Aria's tone was icy. "CEO Lowell, please have some self-respect, Sincere. I was wrong, I'm the one who hurt you." Victoria yanked her hand free and slapped herself twice, hard, vowing, "I was too selfish before. If I ever do anything to wrong you again, may I die a horrible death. I've cut all ties with Ethan Shaw. I've even used all of the Lowell family's power to crush him. I love you, Sincere." Sincere's eyes were calm, as if she were just an insignificant stranger. "CEO Lowell, you have the wrong person." Victoria struggled desperately. "It was Ethan Shaw who climbed into my bed when I was drunk. I didn't mean for it to happen. The first time was an accident. What about later?" Aria looked down at her, sneering. "The difference between humans and animals is that humans use their will to control their actions, not let themselves be controlled by desire and instinct. You can't even endure a little loneliness. What right do you have to talk about love?" "I just made a mistake I can change," Victoria shouted. "Sincere loves me. He traveled through 3,000 worlds for me. How could he give up on me?" A chilling aura instantly enveloped Aria. It wasn't jealousy, but heartache. His sincere love had been wasted on this piece of trash. Nonsense. Maria could no longer sit still, her eyes like ice. "Victoria Lowell, I see the rumors are true. You've really gone mad. The young master of the Clark family was driven to his death by you. What does my Sincere have to do with you? If you dare to pester him again, the Lowell Corporation can forget about having a foothold in Viridia." Victoria screamed in pain towards Sincere. "No, Sincere, say something." Sincere Victoria Lowell Eleanor, who had rushed over after hearing the news, almost fainted at the sight. She grabbed Victoria and slapped her twice. Slap, slap. Maria's face was frosty. "Mrs. Lowell, your daughter scaring my Sincere is a small matter, but disrupting old Mr. Sterling's 80th birthday. Can the Lowell family bear the consequences?" The color drained from Eleanor's face. Offending both the Sterling and Morgan families at the same time would be adding fuel to the fire for the already precarious Lowell family. The Lowell family might cease to exist. "You wretched thing." Eleanor grabbed Victoria and forced her to kneel. But Victoria only cared about pleading. "Sincere, don't leave me. I really know I was wrong." Eleanor's vision went black. Her already stooped back bent even further. With a full head of white hair, she forced herself to stay upright, trembling as she apologized to both the Sterling and Morgan families. Because of Mrs. Sterling's tragic marriage, Arya Sterling had always kept her distance from romance. Now the old man saw that his granddaughter, who he thought might end up alone, was showing some signs of a relationship with the Morgan boy. The boy was talented, with an impeccable appearance, background, and character. Old Mr. Sterling was extremely satisfied. How could he allow the insignificant Lowell family to bully his future grandson-in-law? Old Mr. Sterling sternly warned the Lowell family. Eleanor stood awkwardly, repeatedly apologizing. "Rest assured, Mr. Sterling, Victoria Lowell will never appear in the young Morgan's sight again." By the time they got in the car, Eleanor seemed to have aged another 10 years. Just a few months ago, she was the elegant Mrs. Lowell. Now, she looked like an old woman. "Mom, he is Sincere. You recognize him too, right?" Eleanor turned her head mechanically, looking at her crazed daughter with sorrow and despair. Her voice was frail. "If it were before, I would have been happy to see you project your feelings for Sincere onto the young Morgan. The Lowell family hadn't fallen yet, and the young Morgan was still considered a fool. You were a good match." Victoria screamed in utter despair. "Mom, why don't you believe me? He is Sincere. He's my husband. We were supposed to get married 6 years ago, and even 4 months ago." Victoria's heart felt like it was being stabbed. "We were so close to getting married. Then why did you have to cheat?" Eleanor was heartbroken. "You can't pick it up, and you can't put it down. How did you manage to live your life like this?" Victoria held her head and wailed in pain. "Sincere, Sincere, I was wrong. I was really wrong." Eleanor was both heartbroken and angry at her for not living up to expectations. Finally, she said earnestly, "The young Morgan is not someone you can covet. The Lowell family is not what it used to be. Now, not to mention the Sterlings, even the Morgans alone can crush us. If you continue like this, you will destroy the Lowell family. This is your father's life's work." Before Eleanor could finish, Victoria lost consciousness. Eleanor had the driver turn the car around and head straight for the hospital. Her original intention was to have her daughter checked to see if she had really lost her mind. But the doctor brought her terrible news. CEO Lowell's vital signs are dropping rapidly. There's no telling when she might fall asleep and never wake up. After the birthday banquet, Arya Sterling first invited the starstruck Ivy Morgan out. After catering to her interests a few times, the two quickly became best friends who shared the same bed. At the same time, the Sterling and Morgan corporations collaborated on several projects, all of which were hugely profitable. Marcus, who already admired Arya, was now eager to pack his son up and send him over. As for Maria, one of her close friends happened to be Arya's paternal aunt. Arya often had her aunt put in a good word for her with her future mother-in-law. The aunt, wanting to improve her relationship with the main branch of the family, spared no effort in promoting the marriage. After hearing so much, Maria also came to believe that Arya was an excellent choice for a daughter-in-law. After that, Arya used the excuse of liking cats to gain entry into the Morgan household. Sincere held the tabby cat, kneading its little paws, and smiled. The dignified head of the Sterling family. "You can have any cat you want. Why do you have to come see this one every day?" Arya did not hide the intense affection in her eyes. "Because it's one of a kind." Sincere looked up and met the woman's deep, mysterious, star-like eyes. A blush crept up his handsome cheeks. Arya's heart filled with a deep warmth. Her crown prince was so wonderful. Suddenly, Arya noticed a few cat hairs on the man's hair. She subconsciously raised her hand. When her fingertips touched his hair, an even stronger electric current coursed through her body. When she came to her senses, Arya realized her actions were too presumptuous. Just as she was about to apologize, she noticed something and her eyes curved into a smile. He hadn't resisted. This was a very good sign. It meant she was finally slowly invading his heart. After 3,000 lifetimes, Arya was very patient. She believed that one day she would completely possess her crown prince's body and soul. Arya lingered until 8 o'clock at night before leaving. No sooner had she left than she was back at the door again. Ivy teased, so inseparable. "Arya, why don't you just pick a date and get engaged? I'm waiting to drink at my brother and sister-in-law's wedding." Maria helplessly tapped her daughter's forehead. "You child. Mom hasn't even prepared the betrothal gifts yet." Hearing the Morgan family's tone, Arya blushed and almost ran out the door to do 10 laps. But she had come this time to deliver a file to Sincere. "Sincere, this is what you asked me to investigate." Victoria had just caused a scene at the birthday banquet, claiming he was Sincere. It was inconvenient for Sincere to use the Morgan family's resources to investigate the Clark family's old affairs, so he had asked her for help. Arya had guessed that he was indeed Sincere Clark. Thinking about everything he had been through, she was both angry and heartbroken. That car accident back then was deliberately caused by Ethan Shaw's father. Arya carefully observed his expression. A few days before the accident, he was diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer. Worried about his young son, he orchestrated the accident, using his life to make the Clark family owe him a huge debt of gratitude. She didn't expect the Clark family to be so foolish. Arya had no good feelings for her former in-laws, only deep hatred. How dare they? Sincere's hands trembled as he held the file. He had finally uncovered the truth. Anger, injustice, a myriad of emotions swirled within him. "Sincere, are you okay?" Sincere looked at her with tear-filled eyes, finally burying his head in her shoulder and sobbing quietly. His tears soaked her clothes. A muffled voice, filled with heartbreaking grievance and relief, emerged. "Arya, I don't owe him anything." The next day, the evidence of Ethan's father deliberately faking the car accident was placed on the desks of Sebastian Clark and Melody Clark, including evidence of Ethan ostracizing, slandering, and bullying Sincere during his school years, all presented together at the Clark residence. After reading the appalling details, even Sebastian's cold heart couldn't help but fill with anger. "Ethan Shaw, I thought you turned on Sincere because of Victoria, that you schemed to kill him. I never thought you started bullying him in elementary school." Sebastian slammed the table, spitting with rage. "Because of you, my life's work has been ruined. The Clark family has been utterly humiliated. For all these years, the Clark family has been raising a snake. Ethan was unconcerned. Melody is pregnant with my child. So what if I bullied Sincere? Are you going to kill me to atone for his death? Don't forget, you're the one who got involved with the Windsors. The fact that the Clark family is where it is today is because of your incompetence, your inability to compete. You can't blame me. Besides, Ethan played his trump card again. My dad died for Sincere. The Clark family owes me for generations to come." Sebastian's face grew darker and darker, and finally, he threw a chair. "You have the nerve to mention that for over 20 years I, Sebastian Clark, have been played for a fool by you and your father." Ethan's heart sank at Sebastian's reaction. What did he mean? Slapped Sebastian through the evidence in front of him. "See for yourself." Ethan curiously picked up the file. When he saw the contents, he stumbled backward, throwing the file away as if it were something terrifying. How could this be? Why is it like this? Ethan clutched his head, which felt like it was about to explode. Sincere didn't kill my dad. It was my dad who deliberately caused the car accident. Impossible, but the truth was right in front of him. His father's innocent, noble image shattered. The hatred that had sustained him vanished, replaced by endless confusion and helplessness. For over 20 years he had lived with the memory of his father and his hatred for Sincere. And now he was being told this unbearable truth? He had hated the wrong person, sought revenge against the wrong person all this time. Oh no, something's happened to Miss the butler rushed in to report. By the time Ethan stumbled and scrambled to her side, Melody was clutching the same evidence, her once bright eyes staring straight at him. Ethan watched as blood spread beneath her, just like when Victoria had her car accident, and when Sincere fell down the stairs. He had done too many wrong things in his life. Was this his karma? No matter how much Sebastian hated Ethan, he couldn't just watch his daughter miscarry and die. He shouted for help. Get the car ready. Ethan followed, his eyes vacant. In a daze, he saw Sincere's cold face, a face he had once hated with a passion. He had stubbornly believed that without Sincere, his father wouldn't have died. But Sincere was the one who had been dragged into it. His hatred for Sincere was so baseless. His life wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. Except for the first 5 years, the next 20-something years seemed to be filled with nothing but hatred. How did he end up like this? Ethan stared blankly at the ethereal face. Sincere Clark, have you come to take your revenge on me? You're so ridiculous. Ha ha ha. We're all so ridiculous. The child did not survive. Ethan sat blankly by the hospital bed, silent. Melody lay weakly in bed. After what felt like an eternity, she slowly raised her hand and placed it on her still distended abdomen. The late-term miscarriage had nearly killed her. Her mind was filled with thoughts of the brother who used to foolishly protect her. Big Bro was only 5 then. From that day on, he carried the weight of a human life on his shoulders and suffered countless grievances. Melody's voice was soft. My brother never had a malicious bone in his body. I was the one who misunderstood him all along. Victoria was right. I don't deserve to be his sister. Melody's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry to my brother, and I'm sorry to my child. Ethan stared blankly into space, numbly listening to Melody's sobs. The child was gone. Sebastian would no longer protect him. Melody Clark, I drugged you and deliberately got you pregnant with this child to get myself a protective charm. Ethan said, you were so foolish. You endured all the criticism and never told the truth. Now the child is gone. There's no need for our relationship to continue. Melody looked up at him, her tears unstoppable, her voice filled with sorrow. I know you don't love me, Ethan, but I've loved you since I was 18. I sympathize with your sensitivity and fragility. But why? Why were you so cruel to my brother? The smile on Ethan's lips froze. He couldn't help but wonder if he hadn't obsessively sought revenge on Sincere, if he hadn't gotten entangled with that cold-blooded, heartless woman Victoria. Things probably wouldn't have ended up like this. But now the blood of her brother lay between him and Melody. There would be no future for them. Melody wept. My brother is dead. Mom is severely depressed. The Clark Corporation is on the verge of bankruptcy, and my child is gone. My family is ruined, and I can't protect anyone. Ethan smiled bitterly. Dad used to call Sincere a jinx, but I'm the real one. I'm the one who brought so much disaster to the Clark family. After a long silence, he finally spoke. I'm sorry. In the hospital room, Victoria, haggard and frail, was surprisingly lucid. She leaned quietly against her pillow, watching a live broadcast. Since her illness began a year ago, she had been sleeping for longer and longer periods each day. Victoria knew that one day she would fall asleep and never wake up. This was her karma. She had to accept it. Fortunately, she had woken up in time for Sincere Morgan and Arya Sterling's wedding of the century. Sincere Morgan and Sincere Clark actually looked nothing alike. But Victoria could still see his lively, vibrant self from years ago in his bright, star-like eyes. On the television, he was looking at another woman with deep affection. Victoria remembered, many years ago, there was a man who looked at her with the same clear, bright eyes, his heart and soul filled with her. When did she lose him? Victoria stared blankly at the man in the perfectly tailored designer suit, looking like an immortal who had descended to earth. She had been a maggot in the gutter, and he, like a beam of light, had burst into her dark, decaying life, leading her towards the light. A god had fallen to the mortal world for her, but all she wanted was to drag him down into the mud with her. She had tainted him with lies and betrayal. Victoria's gaze slowly shifted to the woman in the pristine white wedding dress. She sensed a kindred spirit in Arya Sterling. They were both obsessive madwomen. The difference was, Arya would never dream of hurting him. She would stand firmly with him on a higher stage, shining brightly. Victoria had long understood that losing him was what she deserved. She had brought it upon herself. The door to the room opened, and Eleanor entered, leaning on a cane and carrying a thermal container. "Victoria, you're awake. Mom made your favorite wontons from when you were a child." Listening to the laughter from the television, Eleanor didn't bother to repeat that the man was not sincere. She sat by the bed and opened the container. As she aged, Eleanor had learned to let things go. Like any ordinary mother, she began to ramble. Ethan Shaw turned himself in. The verdict just came down, life in prison. He accepted it quite calmly. "I'm old now, I can't keep going. I don't trust anyone, so I handed the Lowell Corporation over to the state. Your uncles fought for half their lives, and in the end they got nothing. You should have seen their faces. It was comical. Eleanor's eyes were red. Your father was a good, loyal man. If he were still here, he would have chosen one of your cousins to inherit the business. But your uncles killed the person who cared about them most." Victoria ate the wontons her mother fed her, her eyes filled with tears. On the television, the wedding ceremony concluded. He was now another woman's husband. How was she any different from her uncles? She had also personally killed the person who loved her most in the world. "I'm sorry. I've been so busy with the Lowell Corporation all these years that I forgot the reason your father founded it in the first place. He wanted you to be happy and carefree. It was me who didn't take good care of you." Eleanor was filled with regret. If she had spent more time with her daughter, would she have had such deep childhood trauma? Would she have developed such an obsessive, twisted personality? If she had taught her daughter to be a person of integrity, Sincere wouldn't have died, and she wouldn't have contracted this strange illness. Eleanor held the bowl, her old tears streaming down her face. "Victoria, it was Mom who ruined you." "No, it was me who was unfilial." Victoria's vision blurred, but the pain in her heart was sharp and clear, giving her no peace even in her sleep. "I'm sorry to Sincere, and I'm sorry to you. In this life, I've wronged everyone." Victoria didn't know how long she slept. It seemed she woke up intermittently, hearing that Sincere Morgan had become a father, had won awards. The last time she woke up, her mother was too old to walk, and didn't even have time to have a nurse push her to see her. The nurses were talking about Sincere Morgan. "Did you see the news? Miss Arya Sterling has officially handed over the position of head of the family to her son, who just graduated from university. She's taking Mr. Sincere Morgan on a trip around the world. They say they're going to travel and sketch. Oh my, the head of the Sterling family has spent a lot of time traveling with Mr. Morgan over the years. I heard their son was sent to the corporation for training when he was 13. Is this a case of the parents are the true love, the child was an accident? Haha. Speaking of which, Mr. Morgan is a master of the art world. He's won all sorts of awards at home and abroad. His paintings are worth a fortune." A nurse pointed to Victoria and whispered, "Did you know?" She once caused a scene at old Mr. Sterling's birthday banquet, shouting that Mr. Morgan was her deceased fiancé. "I know." Her fiancé was that young master of the Clark family who died young. He was burdened with a strange debt of gratitude, targeted by his adopted brother, and betrayed by his family and lover. It was truly a bitter life. Now the Clark CEO is dead. Mrs. Clark has become a nun, and the Clark's daughter is all alone. The once illustrious Clark family has completely fallen. Victoria Lowell has been asleep for half her life. Don't you think that's karma? Definitely. It's just a shame about the young Clark. Sigh, if Mr. Morgan really is the reincarnation of the young Clark, that would be nice. But that's impossible. Speaking of which, hasn't Mr. Morgan had a wonderful life? Victoria let herself sink back into the endless darkness. Neither of them had been wrong about Arya. She had loved and protected him, just as she had promised at their wedding, never changing. He was very happy. She could finally rest in peace. End of story.